Power is supposed to have limits. Governments write laws, courts enforce them, and police exist to make sure no single person operates above them. That's how modern society is supposed to work. But the men in this video were never bound by those rules. They built empires governments couldn't dismantle, accumulated wealth investigators couldn't trace, and exercised power that politicians quietly learned to work around rather than challenge. The law knew exactly where some of them were. It simply couldn't touch them. These weren't desperate criminals scrambling to survive. These were architects. A man who defrauded thousands of ordinary investors out of $150 million while the FBI watched helplessly. A street kid from Mumbai who eventually shared smuggling routes with Al-Qaeda. A Yakuza boss who ran Japan's largest criminal syndicate from a prison cell. A New York ghost who has never been caught giving a single order. A blood-bound organization that controls more of the world's cocaine than any government can account for. Most of them are still alive, still operating, still untouchable. Today, we're covering the most feared mafia bosses alive in the world right now, and why nobody has been able to stop them. Case 1. Semion Mogilevich, the man the FBI calls the most dangerous gangster in the world. Semion Mogilevich was born on June 30, 1946, in the Podil neighborhood of Kyiv, in what was then the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. He grew up Jewish, during a period when being Jewish in the Soviet Union came with serious disadvantages. Restricted career options, social suspicion, and limited access to higher education in certain fields. Mogilevich pushed through that and graduated from the University of Lviv with a degree in economics. That degree became the foundation of everything that came after. While other criminals relied on muscle and intimidation, Mogilevich built his power through money. How to move it, hide it, multiply it, and make it untouchable. He entered the criminal world in the early 1970s, starting small. He joined a Moscow-based criminal group called the Lyubertskaya, where he was involved in petty crimes and currency dealing. In the Soviet Union, trading in foreign currency was illegal, and Mogilevich was convicted for it in 1973. He was convicted again in 1977, this time for fraud. He served 2 prison terms, 3 years for the first conviction, 4 years for the second. Those years in Soviet prisons introduced him to serious criminals, and by the time he got out, his ambitions had grown well beyond street-level crime. His first major score came in the 1980s, and it was cold and calculated. The Soviet government had begun allowing Jewish citizens to emigrate to Israel and the West. Thousands of families wanted to leave, and they needed to sell their belongings quickly before they went. Mogilevich stepped in as a fixer. He made deals with emigrating Jewish families, promising to sell their furniture, jewelry, and valuables at fair market prices and send them the money once they arrived in their new country. He took the goods. He sold them. He kept every ruble. The families who trusted him arrived in Israel, in America, in Western Europe, with nothing. He built his first real fortune off people who had no way to fight back and no country willing to chase him on their behalf. In the late 1980s, he moved to Hungary. After the fall of communism, Budapest became a hub for Eastern European organized crime. Relatively open borders, weak enforcement, and a banking system that could be exploited. Mogilevich set up companies there, moved money through them, and began building the international network that would define his career. In 1991, he married a Hungarian woman named Katalin Pap, which gave him Hungarian citizenship and a Hungarian passport, a document that made moving across European borders significantly easier. He already had Israeli citizenship from an earlier period when he briefly lived in Israel in 1990. He would eventually hold Russian, Israeli, and Ukrainian citizenship simultaneously, along with multiple passports under different names. By the early 1990s, he had aligned himself with one of Russia's most powerful criminal organizations, the Solntsevskaya Bratva. He became their primary money laundering contact. the man responsible for taking money generated by drug trafficking, extortion, and weapons deals and turning it into clean cash through a web of companies, banks, and shell corporations. In 1994, his organization took control of Inkombank, at that time one of the largest private banks in Russia. That gave his criminal network direct access to the global financial system. The bank collapsed in 1998 under suspicion of large-scale money laundering. His biggest scheme, the one that finally put his name on an American federal indictment, was called YBM Magnex International. On paper, it was a legitimate company. It was incorporated in Canada, traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, had offices in Newtown, Pennsylvania, reported revenues of hundreds of millions of dollars, and claimed to manufacture industrial magnets. Former Ontario Premier David Peterson sat on its board of directors. Major accounting firms like Deloitte and Touche handled its books. Between 1994 and 1998, its stock price rose from 10 cents per share to $20.15 per share, a climb of roughly 2,000%. When FBI agents and officials from multiple U.S. government agencies raided YBM's Pennsylvania headquarters on May 13, 1998, they found bank statements, invoices, purchase orders, and thousands of pages of documents describing a profitable manufacturing business. They found one thing missing: magnets. There were no magnets. There had never been magnets. The entire operation was a fraud, run by Mogilevich from Budapest, designed to inflate stock prices using forged financial records, bribes to accountants, and lies submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The company's stock collapsed overnight. A company that had been valued at $1 billion on the Toronto Stock Exchange became worthless in a single day. Investors lost more than $150 million. In a separate, related investigation, approximately $10 billion had been laundered through 18 accounts at the Bank of New York, connected to a Mogilevich-linked company called Benex between 1997 and 1999. Mogilevich personally made $18.4 million from YBM stock sales, bonuses, and compensation before the company collapsed. His partner, Jacob Bogatin, who served as YBM's chairman and chief executive officer, made $10 million. On March 13, 2002, Mogilevich was indicted in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. On April 24, 2003, a superseding indictment charged him with 45 counts: RICO conspiracy, money laundering, wire fraud, securities fraud, mail fraud, and related violations. The United States offered a reward of $5 million for information leading to his arrest. He had never set foot in Pennsylvania. He ran the entire fraud from Budapest, behind layers of shell companies and bribed intermediaries. The YBM charges were the only ones the FBI could actually bring because they were the only ones tied to American soil. Behind the scenes, U.S. law enforcement believed Mogilevich was responsible for far more: weapons trafficking, contract murders, prostitution rings operating across international borders, and drug trafficking on a scale that spanned continents. A 1996 FBI report identified his reach across Central Europe, including Prague, Vienna, the United Kingdom, Ukraine, France, Slovakia, Israel, and the United States. He purchased a bankrupt airline from a former Soviet Central Asian republic and used it to traffic heroin out of the Golden Triangle in Southeast Asia. He allegedly sold ground-to-air missiles and armored vehicles to Iran in the early 1990s. According to the FBI, he controlled all smuggling through Moscow's Sheremetyevo International Airport, which one FBI source called a smuggler's paradise. In 1998, a classified FBI report noted that one of his lieutenants had been approached about a plan to dump American toxic waste in the Chernobyl region of Ukraine through payoffs to decontamination workers. In May 1995, Czech police raided a birthday party at a Prague restaurant Mogilevich owned, where 200 people had gathered. including the head of the Solntsevskaya Bratva. The gathering had been organized at a time when the Solntsevo group reportedly intended to kill Mogilevich over a disputed payment of $5 million. Mogilevich never arrived. It was widely believed that a senior Czech police official with ties to the Russian Mafia had warned him in advance. On January 24, 2008, Russian police arrested him outside a Moscow supermarket. He was charged with tax evasion related to his alleged role as a consultant to a cosmetics retail chain called Arbat Prestige. He was denied bail multiple times. A Moscow court ruled that his charges were serious enough to keep him detained. He was held for 18 months. On July 24, 2009, he was released. Russian authorities stated that the charges are not of a particularly grave nature. The criminal case was formally closed on April 18, 2011. He walked out of custody and returned to his life in Moscow. The United States had no ability to touch him. On October 21, 2009, while he was still in Russian detention, the FBI added Mogilevich to its 10 most wanted fugitives list, the 494th person in history to make that list. He was on it alongside some of the world's most dangerous individuals. In 2015, the FBI quietly removed him from the list, noting he was living openly in a country without an extradition treaty with the United States and was not considered an immediate threat to the public. The statement was candid about why. They knew exactly where he was. They simply could not reach him. Shortly before his assassination, Russian FSB defector Alexander Litvinenko claimed Mogilevich had a good relationship with Vladimir Putin from the 1990s. Wikipedia. Wiretapped conversations from Ukrainian presidential offices conducted between 1998 and 2000 and known as the Melnichenko tapes recorded discussions confirming that Mogilevich had a personal relationship with Putin going back to his time. Working in St. Petersburg. The head of Ukrainian military intelligence at that time told Ukrainian President Kuchma in a recorded conversation that Mogilevich had been a KGB and SVR agent since the Soviet era. That context explains everything about why Russia has never handed him over, and never will. In 2006, former Clinton administration anti-organized crime official John Weiner said in an interview, "I can tell you that Semion Mogilevich is as serious an organized criminal as I have ever encountered, and I am confident that he is responsible for contract killings." Former FBI agent Peter Cohenhoven, who worked his case, stated that Mogilevich's web of crime doesn't have borders and described him as someone who can, with a telephone call or order, affect the global economy. Today, Semion Mogilevich is 79 years old. He is living freely in Moscow with his wife Katalin Papp and their children. The U.S. indictment against him in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania remains active and unsealed. The $5 million reward from the U.S. Department of State remains in place. He has never served a single day in prison in connection with any of the crimes the United States has charged him with. He is, by the FBI's own description, the most powerful and dangerous gangster in the world. A man who stole from families trying to flee persecution, defrauded thousands of ordinary investors out of $150 million, laundered billions through the global banking system, and has spent the past 3 decades living comfortably in Russia while every law enforcement agency in the Western world watches and waits. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. While Mogilevich built his empire through finance and fraud and has spent the last 30 years protected by the Russian state, the next boss on this list ran his operation in a completely different way, through fear, bombs, and a criminal network so deeply woven into a country's political fabric that the government itself denies he even exists. Case 2. Dawood Ibrahim, the crime lord who became a terrorist. Dawood Ibrahim Kaskar was born on December 26, 1955, in Khed, a small town in Ratnagiri district, Maharashtra, India. His father, Ibrahim Kaskar, was a head constable with the Mumbai police. His mother, Amina B., was a homemaker. The family moved to Dongri, a dense, working-class Muslim neighborhood in South Mumbai, where Dawood grew up. He attended Ahmed Sailor High School and dropped out before finishing. He was one of 12 siblings. The neighborhood he grew up in was not simply poor. It was a place where organized crime and street power were visible every day. Dongri in the 1960s and 1970s was already home to some of Mumbai's most established smugglers and gang bosses. Dawood's father knew many of them through his police work. The irony of a senior cop's son becoming the most wanted criminal in Indian history is something that investigators and journalists noted repeatedly in the years that followed. He started with petty theft and fraud while still a teenager. His first brush with serious gang life came through Bashu Dada, a local smuggler and crime boss who happened to be close with his father. Dawood and his older brother Shabir began running errands and muscle work for Bashu Dada's operation. In 1976, after Bashu Dada insulted their father, Dawood, Shabir and 7 of their friends attacked him with empty soda bottles, an act so bold in Dongri's underworld culture that it immediately made people take notice of the brothers. They split from Bashu Dada and started building their own crew. Their main money at first came from smuggling gold and silver. India in the 1970s had strict import laws that made gold extremely expensive on the legitimate market, and the brothers exploited that gap with a smuggling route that ran through Dubai. They were fast, reliable, and violent when necessary. On February 12, 1981, members of the rival Pathan gang shot and killed Shabir at a gas station in the Prabhadevi area of Mumbai. He was murdered on the orders of Samad Khan, the Pathan gang's leader. Dawood took over the operation alone. The media began calling it D Company for Dawood. He spent the next 3 years systematically going after the Pathan gang. In 1984, he had Samad Khan killed. The Mumbai police charged Dawood with the murder and began actively hunting him. In 1986, rather than face arrest, he left India for Dubai. By the time he left, D Company was already one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mumbai. From Dubai, it became something larger. The operation expanded into drug trafficking. Heroin from Afghanistan and Pakistan routed through Dubai into Europe and the Middle East. It moved into contract killings, counterfeit Indian currency, kidnappings, and extortion. D Company controlled an estimated 25 to 30% of India's total gold imports through smuggling. It had 5,000 members operating across India, Pakistan, and the UAE, and generated hundreds of millions of rupees every year by the early 1990s. Dawood financed Bollywood films during this period. Several production companies took D Company money during the 1980s and 1990s, which gave him both a money laundering channel and cultural reach. In 1986, he even walked into the Indian cricket team's dressing room in Sharjah during a tournament and reportedly offered each Indian player a car if they defeated Pakistan in the final, according to former Indian cricketer Dilip Vengsarkar. The bombing changed everything. In December 1992, Hindu nationalist mobs demolished the Babri Masjid Mosque in Ayodhya. The demolition sparked riots across India. In Mumbai, those riots killed hundreds of people, the majority of them Muslim. Dawood, operating from Dubai, was reportedly approached by Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate, the ISI. What came out of those meetings was a coordinated terrorist attack unlike anything India had ever seen. On March 12, 1993, at 1:29 in the afternoon, a car bomb detonated in the basement parking lot of the Bombay Stock Exchange. The building had 28 floors. 50 people died in that first blast alone. Over the next 2 hours, 11 more bombs went off across Mumbai. At the Air India headquarters, at the Shiv Sena building, at hotels, at a market, at the Worli Sea Face, at a passport office. By 3:40 p.m., 257 people were dead, and more than 1,400 were injured. It was the deadliest single-day attack in India's history, and was described by law enforcement as the first large-scale coordinated serial bombing in the world. The explosives were RDX, smuggled from Pakistan through Dubai into India using Dawood's existing smuggling routes. His trusted associate Tiger Memon and Tiger's younger brother Yaqub Memon handled the ground operations. His younger brother Anis Ibrahim organized the arms landing on India's coast. Indian customs officers and police were bribed to let the shipments through. The Supreme Court of India spent more than 20 years processing the case. In 2006, a special Tada court convicted 100 of 129 accused. In 2013, the Supreme Court upheld the death sentence against Yaqub Memon. Yaqub was executed on July 30, 2015. Tiger Memon has never been arrested. Dawood Ibrahim has never been arrested. In June 2017, senior Indian lawyer Ram Jethmalani publicly confirmed that after the bombings, Dawood had called him from London, saying he was willing to return to India and stand trial, on the condition that he not be subjected to third-degree treatment by police. Jethmalani said he conveyed this to Maharashtra Chief Minister Sharad Pawar, but politicians refused the offer, reportedly because they feared what Dawood might reveal about their own connections to him. After the bombings, he fled Dubai for Karachi, and that is where he has lived for more than 30 years. Pakistan has denied his presence in Pakistan for those same 30 years, but the denials have never held up. In August 2015, an Indian television channel, Times Now, called the phone number listed for his home in Karachi. His wife answered and confirmed he was there. That same year, Indian intelligence agencies compiled a dossier for Pakistan, documenting 9 residences Dawood maintained in the country, and 3 Pakistani passports he used to travel under different names. The United Nations Security Council listed him in 2003 as associated with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and named his Karachi addresses. In August 2020, Pakistan's own government, under pressure from the Financial Action Task Force to crack down on terrorist financing or face economic sanctions, issued official notifications sanctioning 88 terror figures, including Dawood Ibrahim. Those notifications listed 3 of his addresses in Karachi: a White House near the Saudi Mosque in Clifton, a property at house number 37 30th Street, Defense Housing Authority, and a palatial bungalow in the hilly area of Nurabad. Pakistan simultaneously claimed the notifications were simply reproducing UN records and did not constitute an admission that he was there. The UNSC Consolidated List, as updated on June 11, 2025, still lists all 3 Karachi addresses. The United States designated Dawood Ibrahim a specially designated global terrorist in October 2003 under Executive Order 13,224. The Treasury Department's official announcement stated that he had found common cause with Al-Qaeda, sharing his smuggling routes with the terror network, and had financially backed Lashkar-e-Taiba's attacks on India. In 2006, the U.S. also designated him under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act, a separate designation targeting major international drug traffickers. The United States has a $25 million reward on his head. A 2015 U.S. congressional report described D Company as a 5,000-member criminal syndicate with a strategic alliance with Pakistan's ISI and documented ties to both Lashkar-e-Taiba and Al-Qaeda. In November 2008, when Lashkar-e-Taiba gunmen killed 166 people across Mumbai in coordinated attacks on hotels, train stations, and a Jewish center, Indian intelligence agencies reported that D Company had provided the logistics. Reports indicated that the terrorists left Karachi on a vessel believed to be connected to Ibrahim's network. Dawood Ibrahim operates under 21 known aliases, among them Sheikh Dawood Hassan, Haji Sahab, Bada Bai, Bada Saith, and Anis Ibrahim, the last of which is also his brother's name. He holds Indian, Pakistani, and other travel documents. Indian intelligence estimates he controls a significant portion of India's Hawala system, the informal underground money transfer network used to move funds without detection. More than 40% of D Company's earnings still flow from India, according to a U.S. congressional research brief. In August 2025, India's Directorate of Revenue Intelligence and State Police dismantled a clandestine drug lab in Madhya Pradesh, operated by a D Company associate, seizing 61 kilograms of liquid mephedrone. In July 2025, India's Central Bureau of Investigation brought back a D Company narcotics operative from Abu Dhabi through Interpol channels. Operations to dismantle his network are still ongoing, and his associates are still being arrested, extradited, and prosecuted. Dawood Ibrahim is 69 years old. He celebrated his birthday in Karachi on December 26, 2024. India wants him back. Pakistan says it does not know where he is. The UN, the US, and India's own intelligence agencies say exactly where he is. He is alive. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing.
It helps the channel tremendously.
While Dawood Ibrahim turned a street gang into a cross-border terrorist infrastructure and hid behind an entire government, the next man on this list runs a criminal empire that operates entirely in public. An 83-year-old Yakuza boss in Japan who has held power for nearly 2 decades, whose organization files membership rosters with the police, and who still controls billions in annual revenue. Case 3. Kenichi Shinoda, the Yakuza boss who took the train to his own coronation. Kenichi Shinoda was born on January 25, 1942, in Oita Prefecture on the island of Kyushu in southern Japan. He graduated from Oita Prefectural Fisheries High School and got a job at a local fishery company. He was a working-class kid from a southern prefecture with a practical education and a trade job, not the kind of background that draws any particular attention. In 1962, at age 20, he left Oita, passed through Osaka, and traveled to Nagoya, where he walked into the world of the Yakuza and never walked back out. In Nagoya, he joined the Hirota Gumi, a local gang that operated as an affiliate of the Yamaguchi Gumi, Japan's largest criminal syndicate. The Yamaguchi Gumi had been founded in 1915 as a loose union of dock workers in the port city of Kobe. By the 1960s, it had evolved into Japan's dominant organized crime organization, with tens of thousands of members across the country earning billions from extortion, gambling, drug trafficking, prostitution, arms deals, real estate manipulation, construction kickbacks, and stock fraud. Shinoda entered a structured, hierarchical world with its own ranking system, its own rituals, and its own unwritten rules. He rose steadily through it. In the early 1970s, he was convicted of murdering a rival Yakuza boss with a katana. He served 13 years in prison for it. When he came out, he went right back to the work. In 1984, after the Hirota Gumi disbanded following its boss's retirement, Shinoda co-founded a new organization called the Kodokai, together with Kiyoshi Takayama. Takayama was born in 1947 in Tsushima, Aichi, and had joined the Yakuza at age 20. The two men would run the Kodokai together and remain partners for decades. Under them, the Kodokai expanded to branches across 18 Japanese prefectures, including pushing into the Kanto region, the area around Tokyo, which had never been Yamaguchi territory. The move was aggressive and deliberate. Tokyo had long been the domain of rival syndicates, and Shinoda was pushing in without invitation. The biggest test of his career during this period was the Yamaichi War. The conflict started in 1984 when a senior Yamaguchi Gumi lieutenant named Hiroshi Yamamoto broke away from the organization and formed a rival syndicate called the Ichiwa Kai, taking roughly 10,000 members with him. The split turned violent in January 1985 when Ichiwa Kai hitmen ambushed and killed the Yamaguchi Gumi's boss, Masahisa Takenaka, along with 2 of his lieutenants at his girlfriend's apartment building in Suita. The assassins shot them in an elevator. The Yamaguchi-gumi declared war. Over the next 4 years, the 2 sides fought across Japan in an estimated 220 gun battles. 36 Yakuza were killed. Local newspapers ran daily body counts. Shinoda's Kodokai fought in this war, and his performance in it earned him a reputation as someone who could be trusted with the most serious work. The Yamaguchi-gumi won. The Ichiwa-kai collapsed and disbanded in 1989. Its surviving members were allowed to rejoin the Yamaguchi-gumi under a negotiated peace. By the early 2000s, the Yamaguchi-gumi's underboss, a man named Masaru Takumi, had been assassinated by subordinates in 1997, and the position had stayed empty for 8 years because nobody could agree on a replacement. The organization was running without a proper number 2. Shinoda was eventually chosen to fill that vacancy in 2005, and within months, the sitting boss, Yoshinori Watanabe, stepped down, which is extremely unusual in Yakuza culture. Bosses almost never retire. They typically hold the position until death. On July 29, 2005, Kenichi Shinoda was confirmed as the 6th Kumicho, the supreme boss of the Yamaguchi-gumi. He was 63 years old and took over an organization with 40,000 members. He is the first Kumicho in the history of the Yamaguchi-gumi not to come from the Kansai region, which covers the Kobe, Osaka, Kyoto corridor, where the organization had been headquartered since its founding. The way he handled his own induction ceremony said something about who he is. Rather than arriving in a motorcade of black cars with bodyguards, he took the train. On the way to the Yakuza banquet arranged in his honor, he stopped at a ramen noodle restaurant on the street and ate there. He sat down, ordered, ate, and paid. Then he went to become the boss of Japan's largest criminal syndicate. 4 months later, he went to prison. In 1997, one of his bodyguards had been caught with an illegal pistol. Under Japanese law, Shinoda was convicted of conspiring with the bodyguard in possession of the firearm. He appealed the conviction all the way to the Japanese Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rejected the appeal on November 29, 2005. He turned himself in and was sent to the Osaka Detention Center, then transferred to Fuchu Prison in Fuchu, Tokyo. He ran the Yamaguchi-gumi from inside. Kiyoshi Takayama, his deputy, managed the Kobe headquarters during his absence. Takayama ran the organization with an iron fist, reportedly purging 9 senior bosses from the syndicate in 2008 alone for insubordination. Shinoda was released on April 9, 2011, roughly 8 months before his full sentence ended. In February 2012, the Obama administration sanctioned both Shinoda and Takayama directly by name, along with the Yamaguchi-gumi as an organization, under Executive Order 13,581, which targets significant transnational criminal organizations. The sanctions froze any assets they held in the United States and prohibited American financial institutions from doing business with them. The U.S. Treasury Department described the Yamaguchi-gumi as involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, extortion, prostitution, fraud, and money laundering in Japan and abroad. The Yamaguchi-gumi's revenue in 2015 was estimated at $6.6 billion per year, making it the second wealthiest criminal organization in the world at that time. It generated that money through extortion, gambling, drug trafficking, prostitution, arms trafficking, real estate fraud, construction industry kickbacks, stock market manipulation, and internet pornography. The organization was so embedded in Japanese society that it had its own newsletter, an 8-page publication launched in July 2013, distributed only to full members, with an editorial column written personally by Kenichi Shinoda. The column covered topics including the group's traditions and opinions. Another section covered fishing. The Yamaguchi-gumi also had bosses who carried printed business cards with the gang's logo. Japan does not have a criminal conspiracy law equivalent to the American RICO statute, which is the tool that dismantled much of the American Mafia. Without that kind of law, prosecuting a boss for crimes committed by his subordinates was extremely difficult in Japan until 2019, when limited plea bargaining was introduced. In August 2015, the organization suffered its first major split since the Yamaichi War 30 years earlier. Powerful factions inside the Yamaguchi-gumi, including the Kobe-based Yamaken-gumi and the Osaka-based Takumi-gumi, broke away and formed a rival group called the Kobe Yamaguchi-gumi. More than 2,800 members walked out. Part of the tension was internal resentment toward Shinoda's favoritism toward his own Kodokai faction. Part of it was his stated intention to potentially move the organization's headquarters from Kobe to Nagoya, which would have been deeply offensive to old guard members who saw Kobe as the organization's birthplace and identity. The split triggered a decade of turf war between the two groups, with attacks, shootings, and killings on both sides. As of the end of 2024, Japan's National Police Agency counted 3,300 active Yamaguchi-gumi members and approximately 3,800 associates. The numbers are a fraction of what they were at the organization's peak. Japanese anti-crime legislation, a sustained police crackdown beginning in the early 2000s, the 2015 split, and the broader difficulty in recruiting younger members have all contributed to the decline. Around 400 Yakuza offices across Japan were closed between 2014 and 2023. In April 2025, Shinoda's Yamaguchi-gumi formally notified the Hyogo Prefectural Police that it intended to end its conflict with the Kobe Yamaguchi-gumi and other splinter factions. The announcement was widely seen as a tactical move to get the organization's designation as a Designated Specified Conflict-Related Organized Crime Group lifted, a legal status under Japanese law that makes it a criminal offense for 5 or more members to gather together or to use group offices. That same month, Kiyoshi Takayama stepped down as underboss at age 77 and became an advisor to the organization. His replacement as underboss was Teruaki Takeuchi, who had been the deputy underboss. Also in April 2025, 5 victims in Fukuoka Prefecture filed a civil lawsuit in the Fukuoka District Court, naming 4 defendants, including 83-year-old Kenichi Shinoda and 77-year-old Kiyoshi Takayama. The plaintiffs claimed they had been defrauded of approximately 18 million yen, about $126,000, by a Yamaguchi-gumi member who had already been convicted of fraud in a separate criminal trial. They were seeking 22.5 million yen in damages and emotional distress compensation. The lawsuit used Japan's anti-organized crime framework, which allows victims to sue crime syndicate leaders directly for offenses committed by their members. Kenichi Shinoda is 83 years old. He is still the Kumicho. He has held the position for nearly 20 years, longer than any other Yamaguchi-gumi boss, except the legendary Kazuo Taoka, who ran the organization from 1946 to 1981. He has been to prison twice, once for murder, once for a bodyguard's gun, and returned to power both times. He has survived a major war, a major split, US sanctions, decades of Japanese police pressure, and the slow shrinking of the organization he leads. He is still at the top of Japan's largest criminal syndicate, working out of the Kobe headquarters the organization has occupied since 1915. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing.
It helps the channel tremendously.
While Shinoda runs the oldest and most institutionalized criminal organization on this list, one with a fixed address, a newsletter, and business cards, the next case involves the exact opposite, a crime family. So secretive that even identifying its current leadership is difficult. So deeply embedded in the cocaine trade that it outpaced every other criminal organization on Earth. And so structurally designed that arresting individual members barely slows it down. Case 4. Liborio Bellomo, the ghost who runs New York. Liborio Salvatore Bellomo was born on January 8, 1957 in the Bronx, New York. His grandfather, also named Liborio Bellomo, had emigrated from Corleone, Sicily, the same town the Godfather films made famous, and settled in America at the start of the 20th century. His father, Salvatore Bellomo, became a made member of the Genovese crime family and a close associate of Anthony "Fat Tony" Salerno, one of the most powerful mob figures in New York during the 1970s and 1980s. Bellomo grew up understanding exactly what his family was involved in. It was never a secret. He graduated from Monsignor Scanlon High School in the Bronx. He spent a year at college studying mortuary science. He was 20 years old in 1977 when he was inducted into the Genovese crime family in a ceremony held above a pizzeria in East Harlem. His father was present at the induction. Being formally inducted into the American Mafia at 20 is considered unusually young. Most members are older by the time they go through the ceremony. From the start, Bellomo moved fast. He was assigned to the 116th Street crew, run by a capo named Saverio "Sammy Black" Santora, and began as Santora's driver. In the early 1980s, Vincent "The Chin" Gigante, the actual boss of the Genovese family, took notice of Bellomo on the recommendation of Santora and began mentoring him personally. This was significant. Gigante was not a man who trusted easily or advertised his relationships. He ran his entire operation through a deliberate strategy of misdirection, wandering the streets of Greenwich Village in a bathrobe and slippers, mumbling to himself, pretending to be mentally incapacitated in order to avoid prosecution. His act worked for over a decade. He had reporters, lawyers, and judges convinced he was unfit for trial. Under the surface, he was running one of the most disciplined criminal organizations in the country, and he chose Liborio Bellomo as the man he wanted to eventually run it for him. Through the 1980s, Bellomo built the foundations of his rackets. He was based in the Bronx and ran operations in bookmaking, gambling, and loan sharking. He moved into real estate, buying run-down apartment buildings in the Bronx and renovating them using construction companies he had financial interests in. He invested in waste hauling. He took control of labor union rackets at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in Manhattan, where Genovese-connected carpenters held contracts worth millions. A New York State Organized Crime Task Force report noted that of the 100 carpenters working at the Javits Center, 60 had criminal records. Bellomo's crew controlled which workers got hired and what contractors got work, and collected payments from everyone involved. When Santora died of natural causes in December 1987, Bellomo took over his crew's operations. By then, he was in his early 30s, effectively functioning as one of the most productive captains in the family. The FBI was watching. Agents described him as a ghost. He changed cars multiple times before meetings. He met fellow mob members late at night in unusual locations. He dressed in jeans and sweatshirts rather than the suits and jewelry that made other mobsters easy to identify. In one documented incident, FBI agents placed $200,000 in bait money to lure him out. He took the money, realized he was being followed, and lost the agents on a motorcycle. The FBI ended up spending roughly $400,000 on the operation and recovered only about $27,000. In 1990, federal prosecutors indicted Gigante in the Windows case, a racketeering scheme involving extortion of contractors hired to replace windows in New York City public housing. With Gigante now facing prosecution, he needed someone he trusted to run day-to-day operations. He chose Bellomo, age 33, as acting boss. Bellomo ran the family through the early 1990s, while Gigante continued his insanity act to delay trial. By 1992, Gigante had been declared mentally unfit to stand trial, and Bellomo was effectively the most powerful active mob boss in New York City. Then the indictments came for him. In June 1996, federal prosecutors charged Bellomo with extortion, labor racketeering, and ordering the murders of two men. Ralph DeSimone was found in the trunk of his car at LaGuardia Airport in Queens, shot 5 times. Anthony "Hickey" DiLorenzo was found shot dead in the backyard of his home in West New York, New Jersey. Both men were believed by the Genovese leadership to be government informants. Bellomo's lawyers pushed back hard. He took 2 polygraph tests about the murders and passed both.
FBI agents shaved his head looking for evidence he had used lithium to beat the polygraph machines. They found nothing.
In February 1997, prosecutors dropped the murder charges and offered him a plea deal on the extortion and labor racketeering counts, payoffs from a construction union and a garbage hauling company, plus long-term extortion of vendors at the San Gennaro Festival in Manhattan's Little Italy. He accepted and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He had to forfeit approximately $250,000. He was still in prison when the next charge came. In July 2001, prosecutors added money laundering charges connected to a scheme to embezzle from pension funds of dock workers in the International Longshoremen's Association. Then, in February 2006, while still serving time, he was indicted again, along with more than 30 other Genovese members, on fresh racketeering charges. This time, he was specifically charged with ordering the 1998 murder of Ralph Coppola. Coppola was the acting captain of Bellomo's own crew, by some accounts, his friend. On September 16, 1998, a few weeks before Coppola was set to be sentenced on fraud charges, he disappeared. His body was never found. Government witness Peter Peluso, a former lawyer for the Genovese family, testified that he had personally transported a message from Bellomo in prison, ordering Coppola's murder. Some accounts said Coppola had been disrespectful. Others said he was stealing family profits. The government ultimately could not prove that Peluso had actually met face-to-face with Bellomo to receive the order. Without that meeting, the murder charge couldn't hold. Prosecutors offered a plea on mail fraud. Bellomo accepted. He received 1 additional year added to his sentence. His daughter Sabrina appeared before Judge Louis A. Kaplan and gave a tearful statement alongside her 3 brothers. The judge gave Bellomo the extra year anyway. On December 1, 2008, Liborio Bellomo walked out of federal prison after serving approximately 12 years across multiple sentences. He was 51 years old. Within a few years, law enforcement sources began reporting that he had quietly reclaimed authority over the Genovese family. By 2016, the FBI assessed him as most likely the official boss, no longer just an acting boss, but the man at the top of the oldest and largest crime family among New York's 5 families. He owns multiple apartment buildings in the Bronx that generate substantial rental income every month. He has financial interests in construction companies. He is believed to maintain a condo in Miami Beach on Collins Avenue. He gives no interviews. He does not appear at events. He does not make himself available. He passes instructions through intermediaries, maintaining the same structure Gigante used for decades. A street boss handles daily contact with captains, and the actual boss stays removed from anything traceable. The Genovese family has been called the Ivy League of organized crime since at least the 1980s. The nickname refers not to wealth or violence, but to discipline and intelligence. While the Gambino family imploded after John Gotti's conviction in 1992 and his underboss, Sammy Gravano, became a government witness, the Genovese family stayed quiet. While the Bonanno family had so many informants that the FBI placed an undercover agent inside it in the 1970s and 1980s, the Genovese family produced only 6 members who ever flipped as government witnesses across its entire history. That is a remarkable number for an organization that has existed for nearly a century. The family currently has more than 200 formally inducted members and more than 2,000 associates. On October 23, 2025, federal prosecutors from the Eastern District of New York unsealed an indictment in a case called Operation Royal Flush. 34 defendants were charged in a scheme to rig illegal high-stakes poker games using hidden cameras, special card-reading sunglasses, electronic poker chip trays that secretly read cards, and card analyzer technology loaded onto decoy cell phones. The rigged games defrauded victims of at least $7 million over 6 years. Among the defendants were members and associates of the Genovese, Gambino, Bonanno, and Lucchese families. Matthew Didino, 43, was identified in the indictment as a Genovese family member who helped manage one of the poker games in Manhattan and received proceeds from the scheme. Thomas Gilardo, 42, was identified as a Bonanno family associate who later affiliated with the Genovese family, received proceeds from the rigged games, and was additionally accused of extortion to collect gambling debts through threats and violence. FBI Supervisor Mike Mullahy, a veteran mob investigator who oversaw the case, said at the press conference that La Cosa Nostra in New York is still alive and operating. They have simply changed their methods. Liborio Bellomo is 68 years old. He has never been convicted of a violent crime. He has never been photographed giving orders. He has never been heard on a wiretap saying anything directly incriminating. His name barely appears in newspapers. He lives in the Bronx, a few miles from the pizzeria above which he was inducted into the Genovese family 48 years ago. And by every credible law enforcement account, he is the boss of the most powerful mafia family in the United States. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing.
It helps the channel tremendously.
While Bellomo has survived decades of federal prosecution by staying invisible and keeping his family disciplined, the final organization on this list operates on an entirely different scale. It has no single public boss. It spans 84 countries. It controls more of the world's cocaine supply than any other criminal group on Earth. And its power comes from a structural rule that makes it almost impossible to destroy. Only blood relatives can join. Case 5. The Ndrangheta, the crime family that cannot be killed. Calabria is the very bottom of Italy. It is the toe of the boot-shaped peninsula, one of the poorest regions in all of Western Europe, a place of mountains, olive groves, and sparse towns where for centuries the Italian state had almost no practical authority. The Ndrangheta was born there, and it never really left, even as it spread to 84 countries. The name comes from Greek. The region of Calabria was historically Greek-speaking, and the word derives from Ndrangheta, meaning roughly a society of men of honor, or heroism and manly virtue. The first overwhelming documented evidence of organized criminal gangs in Calabria appeared in an 1888 newspaper article reporting extortion rackets and knife duels in the town of Palmi. When Italian authorities charged a number of those gangs in 1889 and 1890, trial documents showed that the organization had already developed a hierarchical structure, a distinct dress code, and an initiation ceremony almost identical to the one that Ndrangheta still uses today. It was born in the Calabrian prison system. Magistrates at the time noted they were dealing with something structured and deliberate, not random crime. For its first century of existence, almost nobody outside Calabria paid attention to it. The Sicilian Mafia, the Cosa Nostra, was more famous, more visible, more studied. The Ndrangheta operated in one of Italy's least developed regions, kept everything internal, and generated almost no cooperating witnesses. That invisibility turned out to be its greatest competitive advantage. Every other major criminal organization on this list can, in theory, be decapitated. Arrest the boss and the organization is disrupted. The Ndrangheta does not work that way. It has no single boss of bosses with final authority over all clans. It is built instead from autonomous units called Ndrin, each one a distinct blood family. Each Ndrina operates independently. It controls its own territory, runs its own criminal enterprises, manages its own finances. If law enforcement arrests every member of one Ndrina, the other Ndrin continue without interruption. There is nothing to cascade, nothing falls down. Membership in an Ndrina is not something you apply for. You are born into it. An anti-mafia prosecutor in Reggio Calabria, Salvatore Boemi, told the Italian Anti-Mafia Commission that membership is often acquired for the simple fact of being born into a mafia family. because blood ties and mafia membership are the same thing.
Within the Ndrangheta, each generation automatically produces new members.
Marriages between Ndrine create alliances. Bosses are incentivized to have as many children as possible to strengthen their clan's numbers. The organization reproduces itself the same way a family does, because it is a family.
The initiation ceremony is known internally as baptism. Candidates swear an oath of allegiance while holding a burning image of a saint, stained with their own blood.
There are two tiers within each clan. The Società Minore, or minor society, which handles day-to-day operations, and the Società Maggiore, or major society, which handles administration and is elected from within.
The organization as a whole has a supervisory body called the Crimine, a governing council. Every September, senior Ndrangheta figures are believed to meet at the Festival of the Holy Mary of Polsi in the village of San Luca, in the Aspromonte Mountains.
A local church contains frescoes painted by clan members depicting victims of their own feuds as religious figures. By 2025, according to Interpol, the Ndrangheta operates in more than 84 countries. Its annual revenue is estimated at between 40 and 60 billion euros. In 2013 alone, its turnover was estimated at 53 billion euros, more than the combined annual revenues of Deutsche Bank and McDonald's.
Before it became the world's dominant cocaine trafficker, the Ndrangheta made its money in a more primitive way. It kidnapped people. After World War II, roughly 1 million Calabrians emigrated north and abroad in search of work. Ndrangheta members followed. As the organization grew and its reach extended, it graduated from local extortion to kidnapping wealthy Italians, holding them in the caves and mountains of Aspromonte until ransoms were paid. Between the early 1970s and the mid-1990s, more than 200 kidnapping cases can be attributed to the Ndrangheta. The most famous happened on July 10, 1973, when 16-year-old John Paul Getty III, grandson of American oil billionaire J. Paul Getty, was abducted in Rome. The initial ransom demand was $17 million, equivalent to roughly $120 million today. Getty's grandfather refused to pay, reportedly arguing that paying would make his other 13 grandchildren targets too.
The kidnappers waited.
In November 1973, an envelope arrived at a Rome newspaper. It contained a lock of hair and a severed human ear. The enclosed note said the rest of Paul would arrive in pieces unless payment was made within 10 days.
An Italian postal strike had delayed the envelope's delivery by 3 weeks.
Getty eventually negotiated the ransom down to $2.2 million and paid it. His grandson was released on December 15, 1973, on the Salerno-Reggio Calabria motorway. Two men connected to the kidnapping, Girolamo Piramali and Saverio Mammoliti, were Ndrangheta members. The Piramali clan used the ransom money to buy the trucks that won them transportation contracts at the newly constructed port of Gioia Tauro, the same port that would later become the primary gateway for cocaine flowing into Europe. In the 1980s, the Ndrangheta pivoted. The cocaine trade was becoming enormously profitable, and Italy's other major criminal organizations, particularly the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, were being hammered by state investigations and internal wars. The Ndrangheta moved into the vacuum. Using ransom money accumulated from kidnappings as startup capital, clans forged direct relationships with Colombian and Latin American cocaine producers. By 2008, an Italian anti-mafia parliamentary commission had concluded that the Ndrangheta controlled up to 80% of all cocaine shipped into Europe. Italian investigators specifically estimated that approximately 80% of Europe's cocaine passed through the Calabrian port of Gioia Tauro. Revenue from drug trafficking accounts for 60% of the organization's total criminal income. The Ndrangheta's policy of invisibility was shattered on the night of August 15, 2007. In the German city of Duisburg, 6 Italian men were sitting outside the Da Bruno restaurant near the main train station. They had been celebrating an 18th birthday. The victims were Tommaso Venturi,
Sebastiano Strangio, aged 39, Francesco Giorgi, aged 16, Francesco Pergola, aged 22, Marco Pergola, aged 20, and Marco Marmo, aged 25, all from the province of Reggio Calabria.
2 gunmen opened fire. More than 70 shots were fired. Each victim was finished with a shot to the head. It was the single largest massacre in the history of the Ndrangheta outside Italy. The killing was the latest eruption of a feud between 2 San Luca clans, the Ndrangheta Strangio family and the Pelle Votari Romeo family, that had been running since 1991. A truce called in 2000 held for 5 years.
Then, on January 5, 2005, a Ndrangheta Strangio member killed a relative of the Pelle Votari clan over a threat to his girlfriend. The Pelle Votari side retaliated by shooting Francesco Pelle on his own balcony while he held his newborn child. The bullet entered his back and left him paralyzed. From his wheelchair, he directed further retaliation. On Christmas Day, 2006, Pelle's side attacked the home of Ndrangheta Strangio boss Giovanni Luca Ndrangheta, killing his wife, Maria Strangio, instead of her husband. At her own funeral, her cousin Giovanni Strangio appeared armed and was arrested, and then released in July 2007. By August, 5 more murders and 8 attempted murders in Calabria had been attributed to the feud. The 6 men killed in Duisburg had moved to Germany to escape it. The Ndrangheta Strangio clan followed them there. Giovanni Strangio was identified as one of the 2 gunmen. He fled to Amsterdam, where Dutch police arrested him on March 12, 2009, in an apartment in the suburb of Diemen, after German police traced him through clues found during other arrests. On July 12, 2011, an Italian court handed down 8 life sentences for the massacre. Strangio, convicted as both the organizer and a shooter, received life in prison. The massacre had an unintended consequence. It dragged the Ndrangheta into global headlines and forced police forces across Europe to finally acknowledge the full scale of its presence on their soil. A 2009 confidential German federal police report found that around 900 people in Germany were involved in Ndrangheta criminal activity, that clans legally owned hundreds of restaurants, and that they were major players in the property market. Former East Germany. The single most represented family came from San Luca, with approximately 200 members on German soil. Senior anti-mafia prosecutor Nicola Gratteri said the Ndrangheta's elite bosses imposed a direct peace on the warring clans immediately after Duisburg, because the exposure was damaging business. In January 2021, Italy opened the largest mafia trial in more than 30 years in a converted call center in the Calabrian city of Lamezia Terme, a courtroom specially constructed to hold up to 350 defendants, 400 lawyers, and 900 witnesses. The primary target was the Mancuso clan, based in Vibo Valentia, and its network of 12 affiliated clans. Among the defendants were not just Ndrangheta members, but an ex-parliamentarian, a high-ranking police official, mayors, and other public servants. The trial was built to expose how deeply the organization had embedded itself inside legitimate state institutions. On November 20th, 2023, 207 people were convicted and sentenced to a combined 2,100 years in prison. The heaviest individual sentences went to clan leaders Saverio Razionale and Domenico Bonavota, both given 30 years. Prosecutors presented evidence that drugs were transported in ambulances, weapons were stored inside cemetery chapels, and municipal water supplies were diverted for clan use. On May 3, 2023, a separate operation called Operation Eureka, described by Europol as the largest coordinated strike ever carried out against the Ndrangheta, deployed 2,770 officers across 10 countries simultaneously. Belgium, Germany, Italy, France, Portugal, Slovenia, Spain, Romania, Brazil, and Panama all participated. Authorities arrested 132 members of the Ndrangheta Strangio and Morabito Bruzzaniti clans,
seized multiple shell companies, and confirmed that the targeted network had moved 6 tons of cocaine from Colombia to Europe between May 2020 and January 2022.
The investigation succeeded largely because investigators had cracked the encrypted messaging services EncroChat and Sky ECC, which the clans had switched to heavily during COVID-19 lockdowns when in-person meetings became difficult. The decrypted messages mapped the organization's hierarchy and traced financial flows across continents.
On July 12, 2025, Giuseppe Palermo, known as Pepe and identified by Interpol as the Ndrangheta's top boss in Latin America, was arrested in Colombia. Palermo coordinated the purchase of major cocaine shipments from Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, and managed maritime and land routes to Europe. Since January 2025 alone, Interpol's dedicated ICANN program against the Ndrangheta had supported the arrest of more than 60 members worldwide, including 6 fugitives. The total number of ICANN-facilitated arrests across all project phases stands at over 160. The Ndrangheta currently operates in more than 84 countries. It has produced very few cooperating witnesses across its entire history. By 2008, while the Sicilian Cosa Nostra had generated roughly 1,000 turncoats and the Neapolitan Camorra more than 2,000, the Ndrangheta had produced just 42. Even today, with that number growing slightly, it remains the hardest of Italy's 4 major crime groups to infiltrate. Its members do not cooperate because they are not just colleagues. They are brothers, fathers, sons, cousins. Testifying against the Ndrangheta means testifying against your own blood, and then living with whatever comes next. Calabria remains one of the poorest regions in Western Europe. The Ndrangheta's operations account for approximately 3.5% of Italy's entire GDP each year. Pope Francis publicly condemned the organization in June 2014 and declared that mafiosi are excommunicated. A Vatican spokesperson clarified that his statement did not constitute formal canonical excommunication, which requires a separate legal process. The Ndrangheta did not stop. 5 cases, 5 organizations, 5 different corners of the world. What ties them together is not just violence or money. It is the question of how criminal power survives across generations and why the institutions built to stop it so often arrive too late.
The final section of this series looks at what all 5 stories actually have in common and what those patterns reveal about how organized crime operates at the highest level.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.